What up, what up? Winbush here, and today I'm excited to show you guys how we can natively get 360 panoramic renders with stills and videos outside of Unreal Engine 5. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, so you can see I have Unreal Engine 5 opened up right now. I'm actually using the apartment scene from the Matrix demo. And so you can see we already have the scene set up in here. Let me hit G on my keyboard to get rid of all those different icons and stuff. But it's just a real basic scene in here. I already have a sequencer already set up in here. So if I come down here to my content browser, come over to my sequencer, pull this up, you can see I only have a couple of frames. I'm only going to render like 3 frames. I'll do like maybe just a still or something out of this. But you can see I also have just a regular cinema camera in here as well. And so in order to render out a panorama, the first thing we need to do is make sure we have turned on extra render passes. Now, if I come up here to where it says edit, come down here to plugins, let me move this towards the middle. I'm just going to type in render within our search here. And if I scroll down here a little bit, right here where it says movie render queue additional render passes, you want to make sure you have this turned on. And then from here, we're going to want to go to the movie render queue. So I'm going to actually shut this down, and then I'm just going to click on this little clipboard right here. And this is going to bring up the movie render queue. And I'm just going to actually click this right here. So where it said unsaved config, I clicked on that. And right here where it says rendering, I'm actually going to delete this right here where it says deferred rendering. And so next, I want to come up here to the green button that says settings. And you notice down here, we now have an option for panoramic rendering. Now, I'm not sure exactly when they added this, because I don't remember seeing this a couple of versions ago, but it's here now and it's super easy to set up. So all we have to basically do is hit panoramic rendering. And now it's going to bring up these settings, in which I'll show you what this one in particular does. This one right here is going to give you a better render that I noticed. I'm not exactly sure what it does, and there's really no documentation I could find inside the official documents on this yet, so they might be updating it still. But for right now, I'm just going to come over to output, and I'm going to make an extra folder on my desktop here. So I'm just going to put in toot render like so. Select the folder. And right here for output resolution, I'm going to do 4K, so 4096 by 2048. This is pretty standard for monoscopic rendering. I used to do a lot of 360 VR stuff back in the day with Oculus, and so this was the resolution that we typically did. Now there is one caveat, like this right here is the resolution for 4K monoscopic, but if you want to go a little bit more clear, you want to move up to 6K or even 8K, and that's going to give you a much crisper image at the end of the day. But for this example, we'll stick with 4K, and that's basically all we have to do from there. So now I'm going to click accept. I'm going to come down here to where it says render local, just click this on like so. And you're going to give us a few moments to kind of warm up here. But once it starts rendering, you'll see within here, it's going to give us like a square image, and it's pretty much done already. So let me go over to my folder. So I'm going to pull up File Explorer, come over to my desktop to render, and here we go. So now we have a 360 image that was rendered out. Now inside this image, you might notice that it's extremely dark, and you might have noticed, actually, let me pull back open Unreal Engine. I'm gonna come back in here into my render settings, but when I click on panoramic rendering, right here where it says allocate history per pane, I noticed whenever I turn that on, I got a much brighter render, pretty much what I saw in the viewport. And so it takes a little bit longer to render. I noticed like whenever I don't have it turned on, it renders just like that. When I do turn it on, it takes a couple of minutes. I think for this particular one, it took me like 10 minutes, but let me show you the results that I got once I turned that on. So if I come back down here to File Explorer, I'm going to come over here to where it says apartment, and this is the render that I have. And so you can notice now it's a lot brighter in our scene, and everything looks like how it should look. And so if you wanted to actually see this like within your VR headset, or within, if you're using Windows, you can actually view the full panoramic within your viewer. Let me show you how to do that. So I'm actually going to use Adobe Media Encoder like so. So I'm going to open this up, and I like using the Adobe Media Encoder because it's pretty easy to set up. Plus it has some options for VR. And so if I click right here on a plus button, I'm actually going to use the one that had the better render out of it. So I'm going to come over to apartment, click on this one right here. And then I'm going to come down here to where it says match source. I'm going to leave it at H.264. Click on match source. Now it's cool because it's automatically recognized what this image is. It's an equitacular monoscopic image. And so right here where it says frame layout, we're just going to keep it at monoscopic. I'm not going to mess with these at all. Use maximum render quality. And let me pull this down a little bit so we can see it more. It's here at the bottom. Let me scroll this up, and then everything else looks like it should be as is. So I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to click on the play button, and that should render out pretty quickly. And let me go back to that folder. And now if I double click on this, you can see now we have a 360 image that we can play back. And this is on Windows. I'm not sure what will play it back on, you know, Apple devices or anything, but you could take this MPEG-4 and basically throw it in a VR headset. You can view it on desktop like this, put it up on Facebook. They have the 360 there, or even YouTube as well. And now the one thing that you might notice, even though it's at 4K, the image is extremely pixelated. And this is what I was saying before. Like if we did like an 8K render, like if we doubled the resolution, and then once we're inside Media Encoder, if you wanted to export it out at 4K, it's better to render it out at 8K and then export out at 4K out of Media Encoder, and it's going to give you a much sharper image. I did something like that with another example, so let me pull that up and show you right now. So I'm going to exit this out like so, and then I'm actually going to delete this, and I'm going to open up the other one that I rendered out at 8K. Now this is a completely different scene when I was experimenting with it earlier. So I'm going to click on render, and I have like this cartoonish grass scene that I rendered out of Unreal. So I'm going to open this one up. All right, so I'm going to click on match source right here like so. Then I'm going to make this full screen. I'm going to leave my export settings at H.264. I'm going to scroll this up, and then right here under basic video settings, I'm going to click on right here where it says match source. I'm going to go directly below it and actually uncheck this. So right now you can see that my resolution currently is at 8K 8192 by 4096. What I'm going to do is actually click on one of these and actually divide it by 2 like so. And so the reason I do that is because in the last example, you can see I've rendered natively out of Unreal Engine at 4K, and the image was pixelated. And so what I was referring to before, if you actually export it out of Unreal at a higher resolution, like 8K, as I did in this case, and then once you're inside Media Encoder, you can then compress it down to 4K and export it from there. You're going to get a much better and cleaner image. If I would have kept this at 8K inside of Media Encoder and exported it out, you might get some choppy playback because it's an extremely large file, and sometimes the computers can't handle that. So for my word of advice, I would say render at 8K, compress down to 4K, and that way you get smooth playback, and plus it's really crystal clear. And so moving on, I'm going to come down here to where it says render at maximum depth. Keep scrolling down here, VBR 2 pass, scroll this all the way up, and then I'm going to leave it at monoscopic render at maximum quality and click OK. And then I'm just going to click play here and let this kind of render out. And then once it's done, you should have a movie image inside your folder. So I'm going to double click on this, and now we can actually move around. You can see how clear everything is inside of our panoramic view, and everything is crystal clear. It's not pixelated at all. And so I wanted to show you guys this because this is something that people have asked me about in the past. I know previously, if you did it natively inside of Unreal Engine, you had to go through a whole plethora of different blueprints. It was extremely difficult to set up, or you could go to the marketplace and buy a plugin. But I'm happy to say now everything is native inside of Unreal Engine for rendering out 360 VR videos. So hopefully this video helped you guys out. I know for me, it's cool getting back into VR. You actually see I have my VR headset. I was testing it out in here. I was rendering out images and videos, deploying it to my VR headset, and it's pretty cool to be able to do 360 VR videos again. You know, you can upload them to YouTube, Facebook, all types of different platforms. And so if this helped you out, make sure you leave me a comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and until next time, stay fresh, keep creating, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'll see you soon. Take care. What up, Winbush here.